Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May the peace and the blessings of Almighty Allah be upon each one of you. Respected viewers, today we have a very special guest, renowned Islamic thinker, the president of Alia International Academy, Kasargod, and the chairman and the medical director of Unity Health Complex, Mangalore, Dr. P Habeeb Rahman. Dr. P Habeeb Rahman, I welcome you to Holy Ramzan question and answer episode on the prime topic, Jihad and Terrorism. Let me make it brief. Dr. P Habeeb Rahman, tell us briefly, what does the term Jihad and Terrorism mean? And what differentiates the term Jihad and terrorism?
Assalamu alaikum, all the viewers of Nama TV program. The question of terrorism as well as jihad is unfortunately linked together. If you look to the very word of terrorism in Islam, you will never find that word. It was born of recently, maybe in another last 100 years back, or even earlier to that, later to that. In Islam, there is no such word as terrorism. And on the other hand, Islam is the religion of peace, tranquility, welfare, etc. The whole Quran invites people towards one God, the Creator, the ultimate owner of the whole universe. Just like there's a creator behind everything what you see physically, so also you cannot escape the same logic of not having a creator behind this universe. So invites first to understand that unity of God, oneness of God. Then subsequently we find in the Quran, everything else is to do with the phenomenon. Because what Quran says is, Iman, the faith in one God and the Prophet, and afterwards it is called Amalus Saliyat, anything good deeds for the fellow man. So Islam never goes anyway to violence, extremism, hatred, jealousy. All these kind of things are added because of the circumstances according to the context which they are dealing with. So you won't find this word terrorism at all anywhere in Islam. So for example, now if you look to the history of human history, we all know about secularism. This secularism is not known about 500 to 600 years back. Nobody knew what is secularism. Because it is a culture or a behavior or administration or a pattern combined with the religious values, all whether Hinduism, Christianity or even Islam. So there was a problem in the West because of the dominance of church. So people wanted to keep away from this for administration, then the secularism was born. And that secularism now is comforted for everyone wherever they find something wrong with the religion. So there is no such thing as secularism in a religion. For example, if you take this 101 book written by Michael Hart, a very eminent scholar of USA, historian, scientist, he has given the 100 most influential men in history. The most influential men in the whole of history ranked 100, and the number 1 starts Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The question is that is ranked number 1, the Muslims are happy. The question is why he has ranked him number 1 as the most influential leader in the world. The reason he gives according to him is that he is the only leader who was supremely secular and religious. See, this is a contradiction again, you find that. The only leader in the world according to him who was supremely religious and also secular. That means the secularism of the West is, as far as religion concerned, confine yourselves to your church or a mosque or a temple within yourself. Outside, please don't interfere. it is in a way good also, because whatever bad seen of the religion is being manifested as a part of the religion. But at the same time, the good values which the religion gives is also so sidelined. For example, the love and education of the Christianity which gave to the whole West or the world, the system of education, brotherhood seen in Islam, emancipation of women, all this put together. Then there are a lot of areas where ashram, where poor people are fed and looked after. All these things are come out of the foundation of the religious values. So out of the secularism when it came, all this has been abandoned as something unwanted. So first point is that there is no such thing as terrorism in Islam, and whatever we call as terrorism is a new word which coined to suit the present circumstances. There is a word jihad. Jihad means not fighting, as is seen today. Fighting may be a part of jihad. Jihad really means struggle. Struggle towards oneself first. The greater jihad, according to Prophet, is within yourself you transform for the better human beings. So that means stop lying, hating each other, giving charity, all these kind of things which one tries for that, then it is called jihad, a struggle within himself. And suppose you want to liberate somebody who is coming to attack, it can go into fighting. That is the only area we find jihad meaning for fighting. Otherwise, jihad is struggling for oneself purification as well as emancipation of all the people who are oppressed and suppressed. So jihad doesn't mean anything connected to violence, killing and all. These are the recent terms which is found there. Unfortunately, there are vested interests who wanted to promote this as a part of violence. Islam is never with violence. It is a religion of peace. Always trying peace, forgiveness, charity. These are the interpersonal relationships which Islam developed with the fellow man and humanity. For example, when Abu Sufyan, the bitterest enemy of Islam during Prophet's time, when they came to occupy Makkah, it's a liberation, there was no war at all. 10,000 men walked to the Makkah and people could not resist it. And nobody was, hardly few were killed. But he gave a instruction to all the people who were stays in the house of Abu Sufyan should not be touched. They can be liberated, they can have their own faith, etc. Though Abu Sufyan is one of the greatest enemies of Islam. So that kind shows the forgiveness of Islamic character, how we should forgive even for the enemies, how we should give shelter to the oppressed and deprived people. These are the lofty values Islam stands for and is no way connected to terrorism or violence. You can find this violent terrorism or terrorism, what you find is a sort of what you call a psychopath psychology of individual. Mad people see around the world behaving very badly in the roads and all, erratically, talking, irrelevant, sometimes become violent. They are mad people. Similarly, there are certain group of extremists in every religion who goes into that extremism and become psychopaths. And they adopt violence as a means of it. They think it is right, but they themselves are sick people. So society has to identify this. Each religious people has to identify their followers. Muslims should identify Muslim followers who are going to the extremism. Christians should find their followers who are going to the extremism, as happened in New Zealand. Hindus should find their extremism who are inciting violence and killing innocent people like that. So they only can rectify and modify these people because other people cannot understand that. So to make it clear that jihad and terrorism has nothing in common. It is a coined word afterwards which was never in Islam.
Dr. P Habeeb Rahman, Muslim community frequently says the fact that there is no terrorism in Islam and not a single act of terrorism is encouraged in Islam. But on the other hand, what we can see is all the Muslims, accused Muslims, are terrorists.
Yeah.
Do you consider this fact propaganda, a double standard propaganda?
Yeah, actually, there is international conspiracy going on against this thing because, the creation of Al Qaeda, ISIS are not out of the people. For example, I heard on the other day the interview of Jawaharlal Nehru with the BBC in 1960 or something like that. The Muslim League was not created by the Muslims. The Muslim League was created by the British. And Jinnah was never a fighter, freedom fighter. He was always supporting the British. The reason is the British wanted certain people under them even after independence. It is their conspiracy. Similarly, there are a lot of conspiracy going on in the world. And this Al-Qaeda and also ISI was created by the West. The Al-Qaeda was mainly created by the West against the communism. And finally, this happened against them only. So also ISI was the remnant of the people of Iraq and Syria who have been oppressed by the regimes of that time. They grouped together and the West encouraged them to develop ISIS. There's an Englishman who has announced that the ISIS, the real name is, it is not Islamic state or anything like that. He says, according to that, you can go into YouTube and find it. He says it is Israel's secret intelligence service, according to him. It's not my words, according to him. You can see in the and the reason what he gives, all who are attacked in ISIS area are being treated in Golan Heights in the Israel hospitals. And they never attack any of the Israel's people there. So we are not aware of all. These are all some of the news we hear. So one thing is very clear, there's a conspiracy against Islam because it is a growing religion. People are accepting worldwide, coming in large numbers. So after the fall of communism, they find an alternative way to confront, to dominate the whole world of their system, is to show some enemy like Islam. So that is a conspiracy, and this is being highlighted by media, by political system, by conspirated vested interests, etc. And they are isolated and proclaimed as something very prominently seen there. For example, you see Islamic terrorism, you said, you don't find Christian terrorism, you don't find Hindu terrorism, you don't find Buddhist terrorism. See, the terrorism what was taking place in Sri Lanka was very Tamils. They are terribly upset, they're killing, and they are the one who brought the suicide bombers first in the world as a part of their violence. And they are all Hindus, but nobody said it's Hindu terrorism there, see. But Islamic terrorism is highly highlighted and proclaimed as if it is something synonymous, and media has got a very negative role in that. Another thing also you'll find, there is what is called state terrorism. The thousands and thousands of people who are killed in the Gulf War, see, by state, saying that Iraq was attacked. And when Iraq was attacked, the name of there is a nuclear weapons there. And out of that, thousands were killed there. And finally they found there is no weapons at all. So it is a state-sponsored terrorism, killing thousands of people. Nobody talks about that. They only talk of isolated incidents of terrorism and highlight Islam as well. This is a conspiracy, and we have to fight back with all possible things, including the media.
Dr. P Habeeb Rahman, let me conclude with one more question. What ways to be implemented to eradicate terrorism and terrorist acts in the name of religion?
First of all, as I said, every religion has to educate their own followers to the real religious values for humanity. As I said, for example, this particular book, this is about Al-Barunis India. It's a very famous book written about the Indian culture and Indian belief and practices, Hindu belief and practices, written by 800 years back by an Arab visitor, Al-Buruni, who came to India in 1017 at the request of Sultan of Persia. He traveled to India to learn about Hindus and discuss with the question of religion, science, literature, and the very basis of their civilization. He remained in India for 13 years, studying and exploring the subject. And he studied Sanskrit, and he studied the Indian culture very scientifically and very objectively, without any prejudice, as it is there. You can see all these things are written there about Hindu culture, Hindu behavior, Hindu practices, as they are, not against or for. This is a scientific study done 800 years back, Muslim. This shows how a Muslim mind worked towards any other cultures. But unfortunately, that is not seen today. Today you find hatred and something wrong with the other religion. So also you find towards Islam. All they talk about terrorism, violence, etc., etc. The real values of Islam is not understood. So a cross-cultural study is very, very important, especially in the coming 21st century, because we are going to a century of knowledge and wisdom, but also a century of violence and destruction, unfortunately. If these things are not controlled, a nation has got a lot of weapons, individual has got a lot of weapons, and takes only few minutes or hours to destroy the whole thing, whatever we have built for thousands of years. So each religion has to educate their own followers to be good for the fellow man, number one. Secondly, do not find the negative value of other religion. For example, if you look to the Indian culture as look the Indian womanhood, so much dedicated to the men as such as a family member there. So also you can find in various areas like certain ritualistic part of their faith and practice like meditation, yoga and all, which are useful for the well-being of human health. Similarly, you can find the charity which are given in Islam, what is called 2.5% of the earning of Muslims should go to the fellow men they are not the owners of that. The owners of that is the deprived people, the poor, the helpless people there. And it is compulsory, should give them to this charity, 2.5%. And that doesn't belong to the owner there. It belongs to the next generation. And also, that is also part of one's worship. See, it is not just like going and praying in the mosque. This is also a part of worship. Give 2.5% of the earning as a charity is also part of worship. So similarly, the charity and the love the Christianity shows to the education, love they show to the fellow man, all these things are positive values which should be encouraged and found out with the cross-cultural, cross-religious, inter-religious dialogue and discussion. And all those negative points should be cornered and isolated, especially by the leaders. And most important above all, the vested interest in all levels, political, economical, social, whatever you call it, should not be exploit the emotions of the religious sentiments which are negatively working in the society. These are the ways you could avoid terrorism. And terrorism, I tell you, will eventually die, because when the supporters of that particular religion thinks that it has no value, no role, destructive role, there won't be any followers of that. On this happy occasion of Ramzan, this is one of the months where Muslims fast for purification. Very important things Muslims should learn is that when the Prophet's time and following years, maybe about 1,000 years, a brilliant civilization was built by the Muslims before the Renaissance of the West. West developed after the Renaissance. when the church was dominating, there was no development in the West. When the church left the dominance or ruling or the governance, the West developed. When Muslims were religious, they were highly scientific. When the Muslim left the religion, they became backward. For example, there is one book what is called 1001 Inventions, a very important book there. This is published by National Geographic magazines, and there is a foreword by Prince Charles in this book, which, if the time permits, I'll just read for you. Prince Charles of UK, he writes, in 1993, I gave a lecture at Oxford Center for Islamic Studies called Islam and the West, in which I addressed the dangerous level of misunderstanding between these two worlds and drew attention to the joint scientific and cultural heritage that in fact links both together. Today, in times when these links matter more than ever, I am delighted to see the success of the initiative called 1001 Invention, that is this book, which presents and celebrates the many scientific, technological and humanitarian development shared by the Islamic world and the West. For while the West struggled in a period often called the Dark Ages, enormous intellectual and cultural developments were taking place in Muslim civilization from the 7th century onwards in science, astronomy, mathematics, algebra, itself an Arabic word, algebra, law, history, medicine, pharmacology, optics, agriculture, architecture, theology, music. A golden age of discovery was flourishing in the Islamic world, which would contribute enormously to the European Renaissance. It's a matter of great pride that although global in its outreach and operation, 1001 Invention is in fact an initiative of a British-based team supported by a network of academics around the world. The 1001 Invention, this book, I can show them. Invention, exhibitions, books and films have achieved significant success in popularizing public understanding of the culture, roots of science, thereby encouraging intercultural respect and appreciation. I can only pray that the whole concept 1001 Invention, and especially this book, will inspire the future generations of scientists and scholars, men and women, Muslims and non-Muslim alike, to build a better world for their fellow men, whatever their creed or color. I look forward to further success and expansion of this important and much needed initiative. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. This is the foreword written by him, and this shows the wonderful development of the Muslim civilization 1,000 years before Renaissance. And Muslims should learn this heritage of the past and rediscover their past history and reinvent their future using their scriptures, the Holy Quran and prophetic tradition, as a part of history which has built the civilization, so also they can build this civilization for the future generations.
Thank you, Dr. P Habeeb Rahman, joining with this question and answer episode on the prime topic of today, Jihad and Terrorism. Thank you for valuable knowledge, information you shared with us, and we hope it will be very useful to the viewers of Holy Ramzan program. Thank you.